Since retiring from politics, she has been actively involved in business and nonprofit work. In 2021, she was appointed chairperson of the Hadassah Medical Organization, where she continues to champion healthcare initiative for the Israeli public. Uri Shacham. Uri Shacham is the Deputy Director and Chief of Staff for Magen Adom, MADA, with over 30 years of paramedic experience, including MADA Medvac helicopters. He has responded to numerous terror and rocket attacks and serves as MADA liaison to the Red Cross and Red Crescent. Shacham has played a key role in Israel's international relief efforts, including being one of the first responders in Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. He frequently represents MADA to the international media and lives with his family in Kibbutz Sarid. Professor Yoram Weiss. Professor Yoram Weiss is the Director General of Hadassah Medical Organization with over 20 years of experience in anesthesiology and critical care. He previously served as Director of Hadassah Medical Center in Ein Kerem and held key leadership roles within the institution. Professor Weiss is highly involved in clinical research and has received prestigious awards for his work, including grants from the National Science Foundation and the European Association for Intensive Care Medicine. He also serves on the boards of several biotech companies. Dr. Avi Almozlino is the Chief of Neurology Division at the Boston Area Hospital, specializing in vascular neurology, dementia, and sleep disorders. A graduate of Tel Aviv University Sackler School of Medicine, he completed his neurology residency and fellowships at Boston Medical Center. Dr. Almozlino is also an associate clinical professor at TUSM. You have to tell us what that stands for, Avi.
Tufts University School of Medicine.
Okay, now I know. We have some Tufts University people here, right? Okay, a former president of the Massachusetts Neurology Association and an active clinical researcher. He serves, I have to be accurate, so I have to say exactly where else you serve. He serves on advisory board in biotech and pharmaceutical sectors and is deeply involved in medical education and community leadership. Also, Dr. Avi Almozlino is the National ISC Board co-chair. Now, the floor is yours, Avi.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the kind introductions. I'm truly honored to share the stage with such distinguished panelists, guests. Thank you for joining us here at the IC, where one of our core missions is actually to strengthen the connections between the peoples of the United States and Israel. So let's dive right into it. As we all now realized, October 7 was the most dramatic event in the 76 years of Israel history. We still feel the repercussion of this day, and in fact, the war is still ongoing. And as we realize today, maybe to reach another climax. So I just want to start by asking each one of you if you can please take us back to this horrific day, October 7, and tell us where this event met you and what were your kind of initial thoughts on that day and maybe the following 3-4 days as to both personal thoughts and professional thoughts as to how would you cope with this sudden, frightful reality. And maybe you want to start, Dalia?
Good afternoon to everyone. It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege. Avi, I would like to thank you for this wonderful organization, bringing together Jews, Americans, and Israelis, doing such, everybody whom I met here, do something for Israel. Thank you so much. And I'm really very excited for meetings here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 7th of October, I was at my home, holiday, and when I heard some of the news, immediately I called to the American ambassador. I assumed that the Prime Minister called to the administration, to the President, and told him what happened, because many things, someone told us about, you're going to wake up to disaster morning, but he told me that he actually put me in a picture that the disaster is so big. It was, I think, around 11:30 morning. And the second call phone is to Yoram, Director General. The hospital is ready. What about the emergencies? Call all the doctors to come back, to be ready. And I have to tell you that I even didn't have idea. As my experience as political figure, I saw so many disasters in my life in Israel. As you know, Israel, we face many terror attacks, many people who lose their husband, the children. I don't remember such a dark time. Really dark time. And we need all of you more than ever. I have a privilege to work with the American movement, HWZO, Hadassah. And you are here in the ISC working so hard to bring Israelis and Americans together. And we are doing it almost every day because Hadassah, the owners, are this wonderful Zionist. I see here Nancy, who used to be the president of HWZOA. And they created, yes, they deserve it, created the most prestigious institution in Israel. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Yoram?
So when Dalia called me, I was on vacation. And the funny thing is
I wanted to kill you.
Well, we need to leave. We didn't know what will happen. But the funny thing is, I woke up that morning and I told my wife, this is the most wonderful first time I have a vacation since I became CEO. And about 20 minutes later, we started realizing what happened. I would say the following: within 6 hours, I was back in Israel. And as you know, we Israelis, we know how to improvise. And actually, the moment we landed, I think already when we were in Cyprus, we started to understand the magnitude of the events. And I think the thing that came in mind were the following. First of all, obviously, to put in place the emergency infrastructure of the hospital, which was already in place and was working. And by the time I arrived, we had already treated 40 patients that came in dire strait into the hospital. But over the past next 3 days, we had more than 150 severely injured patients because we serve as a tertiary care center. So we're receiving very severe patients that are secondly triaged to our hospital. The first ones obviously arrived to Soroka Medical Center in the south and another hospital in the south that was also there. I would say the following. The things that were the most important things that we put in place was that we understood within the first day that it's not only the patients that are the injured, but also that we had in the surrounding area of Jerusalem, we had a lot of outrooted families from the kibbutzim that were either in the hotels or in the kibbutzim surrounding Jerusalem. And they left their homes with nothing. No medical record. We had their medical records, but they didn't have any medications, nothing. And what we did is, within a few hours, while preparing and treating the injured, we started treating these people that were in the surrounding areas, first providing them medical health, pediatrics, and internal medicine, but then obviously also started an intervention with PTSD prevention, because unfortunately Hadassah has a huge experience with PTSD and trauma. During the beginning of the 2000s, during the Intifada, second Intifada, we were the epicenter of events, and we knew what's going to happen. So we have a huge team of psychologists and psychiatrists, and this was the second thing that we were involved in the first few days, apart from putting in place an infrastructure for underground hospitals, both in our In Kerem campus and the In Kerem and the Mount Scopus campus, for a simple reason. Within the first few days, talking to Dalia, within actually 24 hours, talking to Dalia and talking to the teams, without even the Israeli government, we realized that the next thing is Hezbollah, the north, and that is the major issue that will be on the table. They have very accurate missiles and they can hit, and for this reason we had to prepare with the underground infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks. By the way, just want to mention, thank you, Yoram. I want to mention that we do going to have time for Q&As at the end, so please hold your question. I'm sure there are going to be a few. Please, Uri.
First of all, thank you for having us. Really, just spending several days here with the community, speaking with people, it really feels like the kibbutz where I live in the good manner. Kibbutz it is, because there are some negative manners of the kibbutz, but really, I feel like home. At 6:29, when the sirens were heard, we immediately started thinking, where did this come from? Now, let me tell you this. 3 hours ago, my Director General received a phone call from the head of the Home Front Command, the General, and he told them, listen, we are going to escalate our bombing in Lebanon. Prepare your organization. Okay, this happened 3 hours ago, and currently Magen Adom is prepared for whatever will happen. Probably you heard the news. The thing is that on October 7th, there was no such call prior to this. And this is why we started thinking, what has happened? Why is Hamas targeting so many areas in Israel and to this magnitude? The first estimation of our Director General, he told us in the immediate minutes following the start of the attack, listen, this might be a diversion. Put your eyes on Lebanon. We know that we are being attacked from the south. This might be a diversion. Don't send all the ambulances to the south. We might be experiencing a war in the north. And now, personally, I immediately got up, took a shower, and even shaved. And my wife is asking me, why are you dressing up? And I said, listen, we are going to war. We don't know why is it happening, but the magnitude and the scale of the attack, it's going to be war, without even knowing what was happening. Now, as the attack went on, after 15 minutes or so, the Director General of Magen Adom had two decisions that later that day proved themselves as life-saving. First of all, he said, don't let the night shift that was supposed to end that shift on 7 a.m. to go home. Leave them at the stations, because now we doubled our response capabilities, both with the ambulances and at the emergency centers, at the emergency call center. Second thing, he said, listen, man, all the ambulances of Magen Adom, 1,500 ambulances, I want them to be manned. Call all our volunteers, our 32,000 volunteers, called the staff, the 3,200 staff, to man all the ambulances because we don't know what's going to happen. So we want to have all the ambulances for the State of Israel manned. At that, about 10 minutes to 7, we received a call from one of our commanders that lives in Yad Mordechai. Yad Mordechai is very close to the border with Gaza to the north. And he was telling us, listen, I'm hearing heavy gunshots fired, and according to the information that is being transferred in our WhatsApp of Yad Mordechai, we suspect that terrorists have infiltrated using gliders. You know, those gliders that you fly. Now you say, we are estimating to ourselves, okay, this is serious, but how many terrorists can invade Israel using gliders? We know that there is a possibility of this, but how many will come? 5, 10? How many can come? Okay, the IDF will go to Yad Mordechai or Netiv Asara or whatever. He will deal with them, and we'll have lunch on Shabbat like we have in any place. And then at 7 o'clock, 30 minutes into the attack, an ambulance of Magen David Adom that goes on a call at the exit of Sderot is being shot by 2 pickup trucks with Hamas terrorist nukhbas. They target the ambulance directly. And when this team goes on the radio and says, we have been, he's saying like this, it's in my head, terrorists inside Sderot. We have been shot, we have been injured. I repeat, we have terrorists inside Sderot. Now, to go from the Gaza to Sderot, it might be very, very short with a car. But for us as Israelis, to understand that there are terrorists in Sderot, this made us understand how bad is the situation back then. And then we decided that we have to bring bulletproof ambulances from Judea and Samaria over this. One more decision that was received, and I'll give you 2 more sentences, and I'll go back to Avi. At 7:30, 1 hour into the attack, my Director General calls the head of the blood services of Magen David Adom. MADA is also the National Blood Services. And he tells her, listen, if we have terrorists inside Sderot, if our ambulances are being shot near the city of Ofakim, we are going to have many wounded persons or people that we cannot reach to because we have terrorists. Go on a national campaign for blood collection. We will need this blood. We are at the minimum inventory of blood. Remember, it's the end of Sukkot. Actually, you don't go to donate blood during the holidays. We have to have more blood. So within 2 hours, we open up a national blood drive, able to recruit 4,000 units alone that day. 4,000 units on a single day. Now, personally, I grew up thinking, how did my parents felt in Yom Kippur War? I grew up I was born after the Yom Kippur War, and since I'm a nerd and love history, I never understood how they felt on that Saturday, October 6, 1973, when Israel was attacked by surprise, when nobody was ready. And I always thought I would never know how they felt. And on October 8th, I called my mom. I usually don't call my mom. She always angry for this. I called her and I told her, Mom, now I know. Now I know. And personally, I really hope that my kids will never have to know how I felt that day.
Thank you.
I would like, Avi, your permission to say a few words. You know, Israel is, everybody knows everybody. So on this bloody Saturday, I got many call phones, friends. Some of the conversation I record in my phone and I will never erase them. Dalia, do me a favor, my son in the festival, I don't hear him. Do me a favor, call to the defense minister, ask him, what can I do, where? I don't know where is he doesn't answer me. So many conversations like this, and you know, usually I call to the defense minister, and we're friends. I call to the ministers. You know, I was there so many years. Nobody answered. Nobody answered. The mess was so terrible. And since we are between family, so one of the things that we have when we will, Bezrat Hashem, we will win the day, we have to ask ourselves so many questions. And in a personal note, my nephew, one of them is kidnapped. We don't know anything about him, Elia Cohen. His wife, we found her in the hospital. I found her after 3 or 4 days, looking, calling every hospital, every friend to try to find her. And the son, the grandson, the oldest one, and his friend murdered her. So one family. So I just want to tell you that the trauma was so big that one of the reasons that I'm so happy that I came here, because I told Yoram, this is not the time to leave the country. We have to be in the hospital. If something, God forbid, will happen, we have to be there, close to the soldiers, close to the patients. And one of the reasons that I'm so happy that I'm here, to see all of you support us, together with us. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Dalia. I think you convey very well the sense of trauma and shock that engulfed everybody, I guess, on that day. And as one who lived through Yom Kippur War many moons ago, I think this one was much worse, because at that time it was soldiers. And soldiers are meant to fight, and it was very unfortunate, but this time the civilian and the atrocity that took place. So yes, you're right, it's quite similar, but this one kind of is much more horrific. Just going to the next stage, so after a few days, the country was in shock, everybody was personally traumatized, but after a few days, you must have realized that things has to be rearranged and fine-tuned in order to meet the new circumstances, the new demands. So, and that's kind of to professionally question is, how did you rearrange? How did you start to get your system in order to meet the new demands? So, Yoram, maybe you want to start.
I think that after a few days, what we realized is that, first of all, we had calls from the army and the police to assist in the identification of those that were just mentioned, that were massacred and slaughtered. And it was a huge task. So we had more than 40 dentists out of our school of dentistry, which is part of the Hadassah medical organization, and the Hebrew University, that went over with the device that we received from one of our donors, and it's the only device in Israel, which is a mobile cone beam CT, if there's a physician here who understands. But it's a mobile CT that allows you to understand and identify the dentures of people that were burned to the point that we were not able to recognize them. And these teams worked very hard in identification of people. The other thing is that we put our genetics department, which is usually used in order to identify diseases, to try and identify forensically parts of DNA of those that were burned in order to be able to match them back to their families and understand who's the person that is in front of us and is burned to the point that he's not being identified. And this was a very horrific job, especially for the dentists. And I should say that for all of them, we need to provide mental health. And that's the other thing that we discovered. And I would say something that is a little bit, maybe people would think I'm cynical, but I'm not cynical. I think that this war will be remembered by the fact that mental health illnesses came out of the closet in Israel. It's not anymore something that you are not allowed to talk about it. It's completely within the talk of everybody, and everybody understands that there's an issue called mental health, and the state of Israel never put too much money into mental health, and now suddenly we understand that it's a major issue that we need to understand. The estimation is that about 50% of Israeli population is suffering for either very light to severe PTSD. Finally, or before finally, the thing we realized is very quickly that we need to continue the normal work of the hospital. Now, I want you to understand, we had more than 20% of our physicians, more than 300 physicians were drafted to serve in the army. And those that remained had to continue to do the work. And we learned it in COVID. We learned in COVID that you cannot allow not to continue with regular work, because if people don't continue to get to their physicians and you don't continue your procedures, you'll end up finding yourself in a bigger mess. So I want to say that one of the things that I realized during this event is really the ability of people to come and to work. And finally, realizing the amount of injured, we put a huge amount of effort into opening a rehabilitation center. And I will let Mrs. Dalia Itzik talk about it in a moment, because I think she deserves a huge amount of credit, because 6 years ago it was her project. She came and said, there's no rehabilitation center in Jerusalem. Israel is lacking. We talked about psychiatry. The other thing that Israel was neglecting is rehabilitation services. And we started 6 years ago to put in place a huge rehabilitation center. The rehabilitation center was supposed to open on October. Now, we opened it on the 1st of January. Within 3 months, we were able to recruit workers. People work 24 hours a day. And this is the amazing thing about Israeli society. And when you have to salute the Israeli society, within 3 months from the start of the war, we opened a rehabilitation center with more than 70 in-house beds and more than ability to treat more than 200 people on a day clinic. And people are really giving their time, and it's not the money. I think it's really the feeling that it's a duty to serve the population of Israel and Jerusalem.
Do you want to say, maybe where you go, and then Dalia can tell us a little bit about the rehab center.
Thank you, Yoram, for this introduction, because it touches same issues that we encountered. I told you earlier about the ambulance that was attacked. We had 6 of our team members killed by Hamas terrorists on October 7th when they were treating injured. We had call takers that were sitting in the emergency dispatch, and for 14 and 16 hours speaking with people, hearing all the atrocities. Now, I've been a call taker. Usually you have a closure for each call. Somebody calls, say, listen, I'm having a heart attack. You do whatever you can for him. You send an ambulance, that's it. You helped him. But what do you do when somebody calls you saying, I'm hiding under a tree, there are tens of terrorists around me, please help me? You probably all familiar with the story of Abigail Idan, the baby that was released after 51 days in captivity. It was Magen Adom dispatcher who spoke to her brother, Michael, that tells in a very calm way, I'm in the closet, hiding in a closet with my sister. My mother was murdered, my father was murdered, and a call taker needs to speak with him. Now, when I'm talking about a call taker, about a paramedic, this is people like Oshrit, who you see here, 20-something-year-old people that has to deal with the worst atrocities that we have ever seen in the last 80 years. So we had to deal with mental health in the immediate aftermath of the massacre, because exactly like Professor Weiss said, we had to make sure that we continue and function. And in the aftermath, we didn't have time to rest, because on October 8th, Hezbollah has started or joined the war. So we had to make sure that we are prepared to prevent any October 7th happening again in the northern part. So we went into a very rapid preparedness process of making sure that ambulances are ready, that our teams are trained to work under different conditions, not under the conditions where you have injured persons and you take them to the hospital, but under a Hezbollah attack where they have to work alone and they don't know where additional forces will get there. So we had to make sure that they are prepared. We had to make sure that the blood center that was operational but not fully operational will function. And when I'm saying it was partly operational, I'm speaking about a secure blood services that was built entirely underground. You won't find this kind of a facility in the world. You have Alon Friedman here, who was the project manager of this building, and he had to make sure that by October 9th we are fully operational. So we continue to work, exactly like Professor Weiss said, in order to make sure that we are prepared, even though we didn't know what to prepare for. But not only with the organization, but also to the communities. Because on October 8th, it seems like 9.5 million Israelis wanted to undergo first aid training, which makes sense. Because people in Israel in the first few days were sure that Hamas are arriving to their homes. Each Toyota pickup truck that drove in the middle of Tel Aviv was considered a Hamas vehicle. Now, you cannot tell the Israeli public, listen, you are hysterical, we won't train you. Don't forget about it, it won't happen. So we initiated two campaigns. First one was Magen Adom will instruct you how to provide first aid in the first few minutes until help arrives. And we had tens of thousands of people. And we also launched a community preparedness campaign saying, we will train you to work as a group, responding to your community, God forbid if something happens. And we've been training hundreds of communities for this. And once again, this is on October 8th, not November 1st, not December 1st. This is immediately.
Thank you.
I know three more things. All of this is thanks to the dedication of Magen David Adom people.
Thank you. Dalia, please, if you can.
You know, I had the privilege to serve my country as the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. And once one friend called me under the legendary mayor, Teddy Kollek. So always I used to complain to say, how come we don't have rehabilitation center in Jerusalem? You know, Jerusalem was the forefront of terror attacks so many years. And one of my friends called me and he said, do me a favor, can you see this young guy? He wants to see you. And I invited him. I sat in Dan Hotel in Tel Aviv, and he dragged his leg. And I asked him, what happened to you? I said, I thought, you know, I lost my leg. I said, so sorry. So why we didn't meet in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem? Why, you know, you came until here to see me? He said, no, anyway, I have to go almost every day to rehab in the center. So I called to these wonderful women from Hadassah, and I told them, I would like to volunteer and I want to build rehabilitation center in Jerusalem. And I'm so proud of this building and about, you know, the treatment. But I would like to tell a few things about psychology. You know, every normal country in rehabilitation center, There are people who are aging 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 91, 95. In Israel, they are very young people, soldiers. And I wrote to myself some of the examples that we have to do in rehab. The idea that you have medicine there, you have science there, you have equipment there, you have everything, yes. But what about psychology? What about the family? Some of them, most of the majority of them are married. They have wife, young wife, they have children. What about them? One of the story is that very beautiful woman who attracted my eyes, young one. I took her in the corner and she whispered to me and she said, the treatment is very good, but what about me? You forgot me. I said, why do you cry? Because I spoke with the doctors and he promised me that he will recover very speedy. She says, yes, you know, Dalia, this is not my hero. I send him as a very superhero. Look at him. I have to help him in a very needy, you know, daily things. And I have 4 kids at home. Then I understood that we have to operate, approach, comprehensive one, holistic one, to all the family, even to the grandparents, to the grandmothers, who all of them surrounded this drama that happened. And one of the examples is that, first of all, in the evening, they are very sad. Because during the day, they have swimming pools, they have treatment, they have many doctors who come. So in the evening, the dark comes, and they are and you see the sadness on their face. So I understood that immediately we have to do something in the evening. Something that they will feel, lecturers, by the way, they have private rooms. When I ask them, do you want to change the room and to take private room? They say, no, I want to be with my friends. And the chance that part of them will recover, it's a science fiction. Some of them with 2 legs, cut the legs. And when I ask them, what do you want to do the first thing when you feel well? The answer is, of course, I want to go to the army. I want to help my friends. They are there. I left them alone. I want to be there. It's amazing when you see this spirit on one hand, strong spirit. It's on one hand, it's heartbreaking. On the other hand, it's a warm feeling that you hear these heroes. And what I pay attention, that in the evening we have to do something. We took many people and we pay for them, psychologists, therapists, also lecturers, and we do it. I don't know if I have time, but one of the examples is that we have in Israel, I don't know if you know him, Moshe Levi. Moshe Levi was the hero, and he got a medal from Israel, decorated, maybe the most decorated hero in Israel, and he lost his hand. And he almost died, but now he's doing very well. And he has a museum in Herzliya, antiques, collections of antique cars. And he has 400,000 of bottles of wine and so forth. And he told me, Dalia, why you don't bring them to me? Bring them to me. I want to make them happy, to show them what happened with me. I almost died. And I took a bus, and I convinced the soldiers to come. And one of them told me, no, I'm not going to leave my bed. And I told him, Arik, you need to come with me. He said, no, I'm not coming. Please don't put pressure on me, he told me, in a very determination way, but I felt that he's completely despair. And I came, I sat on I said, if you will not come, I'm not going also. You have to come with me. I promise you. If you will feel after 5 minutes, 2 minutes that you want to go back, I'm with you. I have a private taxi and I come back with you. The museum in Herzliya. I don't know, finally after 2 hours, he came. He said there were a special chef and we were there 4 hours. The letter that this guy wrote to me, it's really something that, so I understood that these people need some good stories. They need some hero stories. They need to see that people, the guy is, there is no leg, there is no hand, and I'm sure that he asked himself, how can I live without all this? And you saw the guy after that. And he encouraged after that another soldiers to come, to make the tour with us, and so forth. So the mentally situation, and those soldiers who you see them strong spiritually, they will recover much more quickly.
No question.
It goes together. It goes together, and we have to pay the money, the resources, and always I put pressure on the government that I need the money for that because medical is natural. But why we have to bring all this stuff, around all the psychology atmosphere? It's very, very, very important.
Indeed. Thank you, Dalia. Truly moving story. Thank you. And that's, you may have paid attention that was the theme of the first day of this conference, that we're all traumatized, but there are stories of heroism. I mean, we were all knocked down, but then these 3 guys went, Dedi Simchi, the story of his son, and these 2 other guys. Amazing what kind of heroism. I don't think you find it in any other place. So there is a lot of gvura here. And our wish is that we still, the cliche in Hebrew is me'az yatsa matok. We're still in the az. We haven't seen much matok, but we wish to see a matok coming out of it as to the spirit of the Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you. I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to combine 2 questions into one. And these are kind of about the nuts and bolts of the healthcare system. And really, as you realize what happened on October 7, as your professional mindset has changed to a degree in terms of what's your priorities, your own institution, Hadassah, Magen David, and maybe even broader, it's to what should be the priorities of the Israeli healthcare system. And kind of attached to that, the question whether any innovation came out as a result of October 7 innovation already completed within this last almost a year, or innovation in the pipeline. So, Yoram, if you want to take it.
So I'll be as brief as possible. I would say the following. There are innovations that the Israeli Defense Forces have introduced that made a huge change in the ability to save lives. And maybe you will go into that later, is one, the ability to bring in physicians as close to the patient as possible. And these are extremely senior physicians. It's not someone who's just starting. It's really senior physicians. And having helicopters land within minutes near a patient or an injured and to rescue him changes the complete story. The second thing is bringing blood to the field. When it comes to the hospitals or the Israeli healthcare system, I would say the following. One thing we need to learn from October 7th is the ability to do secondary triage, which means to move patients that are stable from a hospital that is overwhelmed to hospitals that can have huge capacities and need to be used. And I won't hide it, I'm one of the people in the state of Israel who, within the Ministry of Health, who's pushing to that because this is something that as Israelis sometimes we are not good at. And it's very important because it may change the course of the injured patient significantly. I would say we talked before about rehabilitation and psychologists and psychological assistants and psychiatry, but I would say that there's something else that came up within a few days after this event, and this goes to the political arena. We very quickly realized that October 7th is not just a war, it's also an assault on the Israeli innovation country, and it's an assault on Israel not only culturally, but also when it comes to research. And for this reason, I made it very clear to my team that despite the fact that we are under a huge amount of stress, if they are invited to international meetings, they have to go and be in international meetings, they have to present in international meetings, and we have to be very aware of problems in publications that can occur. When it comes to innovation, I would say that two things that we did, which I'm very proud about, is first of all, we always speak about 3D printing. 3D printing is the ability to take parts of the body and print them and implant them in the patient. And we were able to do that with people that had severe injuries to their legs and to their face, to the point that we were able to reconstruct their face completely, and we were able to return the movement of hands, and this is stuff that will be published in the coming year in international publications. The other thing is that we introduced Israeli technologies, and one of them is an enzymatic debridement system that allows us to clear the wound of the burned without having the need to take them to the operating rooms. It's an Israeli company that developed that, and it was a huge success. And we are one of the 3 major burn centers in Israel. We have a huge experience, and I'm very proud also that this was very successful. And finally, I think a field that was always on the side, but because of the lack of psychologists and psychiatrists in Israel, is coming in, and this is using virtual reality in order to help the treatment of patients with PTSD. So if you're asking in our institutions, what are the 3 innovative issues that came up, I would say these are the 3 that are related to the research. I would like to say that as Hadassah, and we lost at Hadassah 21 first relatives of people that work at Hadassah died or were killed during the war, and 1 worker's kid is still kidnapped in Gaza. We made it very, very clear. On one hand, we treat and we deal with the war. On the other hand, we continue what we do best, and this is treating the patient, teaching the students, but thirdly, continuing with research and innovation, and we continue with development of research projects all over the institution. They will not break us, and we will remain the innovation center, not of Israel, but of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Uri.
Well, we learned 2 things from October 7th. First of all, we learned that we need to make our people think otherwise. And what do I mean? For 30 years, and Professor Weiss, correct me if I'm wrong, we've been training our people to remain as little time as possible at the scene and then rush to the hospital. Right? About 30 years in the beginning of the 90s. We call it the golden hour, and within the golden hour, you as a paramedic have 10 minutes to take care of the patients and run away. Scoop and run, this is how we call it. Since October 7th, we try to train them for the option that you have to stay and play. Not because you think you are as talented as Professor Weiss and his colleagues, because that's the reality. Now you are stuck with a patient for 4 hours under siege, and you have to make sure that he gets the treatment. Getting them the equipment is easy. Changing the mindset is totally different, and we have to educate them to think otherwise. Another thing that we have learned from October 7th is that the community involvement has to be much more have to be extended. Okay. Sometimes as medical personnel, we treat ourselves as the experts, and the person on the field is not an expert, so I might use them to operate a defibrillator or to do something simple. Nowadays, we know that they are a major part of the response, especially during special scenarios. So this is something that we'll have to deal with it more. And I think that the health system in Israel have to change its perception towards the EMS, the emergency medical services. For years, our feeling is, okay, that we are being treated as the bridge. Okay, somebody is getting hurt, you are the bridge of getting somebody to Hadassah, where he will get the best care. And I'm not saying this because I'm frightened of Dalia, because really, Hadassah is first. The thing is that the EMS is the gateway to the medical system. And instead of being the one that comes, provides a medicine, and within half an hour the patient is being taken care of by Hadassah doctors, we need to think otherwise. We don't only deal with emergency medicine. We might deal with other emergencies. We want to change the perception of, I have a medical emergency, so I call the equivalent to 911, 101 in Israel. We want to have the health system in Israel think as, I have a medical problem, whatever it is, so I'll call 911. Whether I have a regular condition or not a medical distress, or if I have a mental issue, I will call. Because nowadays, if somebody with a medical distress calls Magen Adom, all I can do is take him to the hospital, and he will stay for 6 hours over there, nothing will happen, and he'll go back home. Speaking about innovation, yes, I know. We are launching a program together with the Ministry of Health, where Magen Adom paramedics will be trained in providing first treatment for people with mental issues. And they will be escorted with nurses that are from the field of the mental health. And if and when somebody calls me with medical distress, I won't send them an ambulance. I will send them a team that will spend not 10 minutes and not 15 minutes, but an hour or 2 hours, and will provide them the mental treatment that they need. We'll have more ambulances for the injured. We'll have more space at the ERs for people who are in medical distress, and we will prevent the need of going to a hospital because you are suffering from a PTSD, reaction or something like this. One last thing. I know that you'll throw me from the stage in a minute. The support that we got from Jewish and non-Jewish communities in the United States was, I won't say overwhelming, but was never seen in Magen Adom, at least in my 30 years. Paramedics came to help us. People supported us. We have now 250 or 300 ambulances more than we had on October 7th, in less than a year. So we may be the boots on the ground when Hezbollah attacks this night, but at the end of the day, it's each and every one that supports Magen Adom that is helping Israel. And I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart, not only me, but Alon's and Oshrit and everybody for doing this. That's it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. If I can just if I can just add my vascular neurology kind of a tip here, because I think you're absolutely correct. EMS has to be much more proactive in the field. And what we actually try now in Boston is to have EMS give TPA. You know what TPA is. That's the thing you give, clot buster you give to a patient with stroke with the help of a neurologist doing a virtual neurology, examining the patient in the ambulance, and the paramedic start infusing the TPA, because the idea is that time is brain. You know, the earlier the better. We are actually running out of time, so we're going to take only 2 questions, I think. We just don't have time, and they are singling me a few times. Eldad is here. He's going to punish me. Eldad, if you can take 2 or 3 questions.
Sorry, speaking English. So first, thank you so much for doing all the way from Israel during these difficult times. Question to you, Ori. Most of the injuries arrived to Soroka during this day. For me, it sounds like crazy how we are not splitting them between all the hospitals around. Can you let us know why it happened and what you're going to do different in the future to prevent it?
I'll do it shortly because Avi is really got my back. No, for a good reason. 2 reasons. First of all, because the protocol that has been developed in the Israel says that during a multi-casualty incident, you take the injured to the nearest hospital. Okay? This is why, because you take them to the hospital takes care of them, and then if the hospital has somebody that he cannot take care of because of a traumatic brain injury or something like this, then you transfer it to the second hospital. This was the first reason. Second reason, because many of the injured came with private vehicles. People fled from all over and arrived to Soroka Hospital and also to the hospital in Ashkelon. One additional lesson learned from October 7th is that the secondary transportation should occur within the time limit of the incident. We usually take all the victims to the hospitals, and in a second phase, we move them around. A lesson learned from October 7th is send ambulances to the receiving hospitals while the incident is still ongoing. We have enough ambulances, but we want to have to give the privilege to the hospital saying, this is minor injuries, he's not going to the ER. We'll take the critical injury, the less injured or the one that with minor injuries would go to different hospitals.
Thank you, Yoram.
I want just to reiterate, the question is not to him, to Uri. It's not to Magen David Adom. I want to make it very clear. Magen David Adom did what they should have done. Period. Okay? And I'm saying it as a director of a major hospital. The responsibility to do secondary triage, and this is the responsibility of Ministry of Health, is the hospital that is becoming the triage center. That's all what has to be discussed here. I had to say it because it's really not them.
Do we have 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
I just want to say that Magen David Adom is a wonderful organization, and I supported and protected them many times when they were in trouble. So Baruch Hashem, they are doing a wonderful job. Second, one of the examples, I would like to take you for 2 minutes to the previous issue about mentally. You need to understand the kids, when they came to the hospital, they are scary. They see the father without legs, sometimes without also hands. It's very scary. And when you ask them, you feel that they don't want to touch the father, they don't want to even, sometimes they ignore him. So we create a Gymboree, a place that the children can play with the father, watch room television together, and you don't believe. One of the things that we did, which I'm very proud of, is to give them to bring them to be able to back to life. So what we did, when they come home, they need to be able to do the most basic things, like taking care of the baby without hand, or using the stove. For these purposes, our rehabilitation, what we did, we include a real-sized apartment equipped with everything you would find in an ordinary apartment. The soldiers began the ability to make their own coffee, get up from bed, load the dishwasher, or unload the washing machine. Sometimes, and they are staying together with all the family, and they have a private apartment there in the hospital. And by the way, in the beginning, they refused to go to the apartment, and after they are staying there, they don't want to leave. And some of the women told me, you know, Dalia, you also educate my husband. He never did it in the past.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Dalia.
And if you give me the permission, I would like to conclude with a prayer that I love so much. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כולכם ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Thank you, Dalia. Thank you, Dalia. You're absolutely correct. I think that medicine is realizing that we don't just treat the patient, we treat the family union, and that's immensely important. We'll have one more question, and then we'll conclude. Please, Vlad.
First of all, thank you to incredible panel. A question more directed to you, Ori, because if I understood in the introduction, you've had involvement with the International Red Cross. And as we all sadly know, the hostages have all been deprived visits by the Red Cross. And I'd just be interested in hearing your perspective in that whole chapter, how you've perceived the role of the International Red Cross. Have they even tried the way they should, or have they just basically resigned themselves to the refusal of Hamas to give the minimum to those hostages?
Thank you for these questions, because this is something that really bothers, I think, each and every Israeli and people around the world who really care for other human beings. Just to give you the background, Magen David Adom is a national society within the movement of the Red Cross. There is an additional entity called the ICRC, the National Committee of the Red Cross, a Swiss organization which is mandated by the Geneva Conventions to have these prisoners of people that were abducted. One more thing about the background. The ICRC has to get the permission of anyone that holds hostages to visit them. That means that Hamas should allow the ICRC to visit the hostages. Now, we understand from the first day that Hamas will never allow the visit of the hostages. Okay, after the atrocities that they had on October 7th, nobody had the question. The thing is that we picked up the phone on October 8th and told the ICRC, come here, good morning. Listen, we understand that Hamas won't allow you to visit the hostages, but you, the ICRC, cannot remain silent on this. You have to go to the public. We spoke about them to the Israeli public, but for sure they had to go to the entire public, and you should say in Hebrew that the Hamas is not allowing you to visit them. And then what does it mean? Because it's acting against the international humanitarian law. It's taking the human rights from the people that were abducted. You have to do this because people will not forget. We are not forgetting what happened 8 years ago. We will not forget what's happening now. Pardon my French, being a Swiss organization, they have their policies. And they told us, listen, we cannot take sides on this because then we won't be perceived as neutral. And we explained to them for 3 hours. We said, it's not taking sides. It's telling the truth to people. How would you think that people will perceive you if you don't go publicly? Because people will blame you for not visiting the hostages. And
world that Hitler did not.
This is what I mentioned. 80 years ago, and the only thing that I can say that we wrote, we didn't publish what we wrote, but we wrote to the president of the ICRC that nobody will accept it and that they have to go publicly. Unfortunately, they didn't, they didn't accept our opinion. We still demand that the ICRC will go publicly. We understand that they won't be allowed, but they have to go public and put the finger on who is violating the human rights of 101 hostages. And one prayer from my side, let them come back home safely to their families tonight.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much, Speaker Itzik. You know, in the US, you are considered to be a speaker for life. Yoshev-Rosh HaKnesset. Thank you, Professor Weiss, and thank you, Uri. Thank you for a terrific panel. Thanks.